Hey guys, so welcome to another video. So in this video, we are going to learn how to insert data into database using Volley library. In the last video, we saw how to fetch the data and display the data in recycler view. So let's submit data in this video. So before we move further, please subscribe to this channel. It will motivate me a lot, and please like this video. And if you subscribe, you will get the notification whenever I upload a new video. So please subscribe. And now let's move on and create another activity. So I'm gonna right click on this layout folder and create another blank activity, empty activity, and I'm gonna name it submit activity. Yeah, that'll be perfect name. Submit activity and finish. I will create a XML and a Kotlin file for us, and before we code anything in submit activity, let's go to main activity.kt, and here we need to add a couple of things. So scroll down to, sorry, my Android Studio is stuck there. So scroll down to where we are getting the data inside get data function. In response, before we pass that response in the JSON object, we need to create a list dot clear. We need to call that because it will stop duplicating the data inside the recycler view. When we refresh the recycler view, you might have seen that data is duplicated. So to stop that, we need to call list.clear here. And now as we're submitting new users inside our, okay, I'll actually change this particular line, not change, I'll add this particular line, what I was about to talk. I'll change that line when we complete our submit activity coding and submit functionality, right? And another thing, I want to create another separate file for constants. So let's create a file which will be a type of object, constants, and let me take that private well-based URL from main activity so that we can get this base URL anywhere in our application, and change private to const, which stands for constant variable. Now go to main activity again, and here we need to import base URL, and press alt enter, and it will import, as we can see, it will import base URL from constant file. Now go to submit activity.xml file, and here we'll take 3 edit text, name, email, and password, and 1 button for submit. So instead of using traditional edit text, I'm going to use text input edit text. So there's the functionality is same. This edit text is just proposed by material library, so I'm just gonna use it for the sake of change. Width will be match parent, height will be wrap content, id will be name ed. This edit text will be for name, so name ed. Then hint will be enter name, and that's it. And I'm gonna copy this code 3 times because I'm too lazy to code it again and again. Change the id to email ed, enter email, id will be password ed, and enter password. And inside this text input layout, text input edit text of password, I'm gonna write one more thing, which is input type will be text password, and it will basically, when we type the password, it will hide the password for other users to see, right? And we need a button. So instead of traditional button, I'm gonna use material button, just for the sake of change. Functionality again is similar, so id will be submit button, and text on that button will be submit user. Now go to design part where we will give constraints and margins to every bit of value, every views that we created. So to every views I'll give constraint right and left to parent and give margin right and left to 16. For name id I'll give constraint top to parent and margin top will be 32. Then email id constraint left and right to parent, 16 dp margin at both sides, and let me just drag it down and I'll give constraint top to this name, margin top will be 16. Password id, do the same thing, drag it down and give constraint top to this email, margin top 16. Do same for button as well, top margin constraint top to password, and I'm gonna give a little bit extra space as margin top to button. So that's it. We don't need to do anything else in this XML file. So let's go to main activity dot submit activity.kt, and we'll need to call create a few variables. So private lit init var button of type material button, private lit init var name id of type add text input edit text, text input edit text, and I'm gonna repeat this 3 times and change the variable name to email id and password ed. Now we need to initialize this views, so let's create a function for that. Init views, and here button equals to find view by id r.id.submit button. I'm gonna repeat this. So name id equals to name id, and I'm just gonna copy these variables from here because id and variables are same, so we don't need to worry about that. And that's it. Now let's submit the data. To do that we need first we need to go to this activity. So let's create a functionality to go from main activity to submit activity. So go to main activity.kt file, actually the XML file of main activity. So go to that, and here I have created already a floating action button, and as you can see I have added an icon. So let's and I somehow deleted it, I don't know why. So let's right click on drawable folder, new, and vector asset, and if you click on this button and search for add, it will give you this little icon. So click on that and click OK, and I'm gonna rename it to IC add and next, finish. So if we'll add this little icon inside our floating action button, so here it is, and I have given margin right to parent and bottom to parent, and I've given constraint right to parent and constraint bottom to parent, and I've given margin right 8dp and margin bottom 8dp. So that's how this is created. And go to main activity.kt, and I need to take a variable for floating action button. So private lit init var fab of type floating action button inside init. We need to initialize this as well. So fab equals to find view by id r.id.fab. That's what the id for fab. And when I click on fab, I want to go to submit activity. So fab dot set on click listener start activity of intent. I want to go from this activity to submit activity colon double colon class.java. So that's it. Now we need to move to submit activity.kt. Now let's create a function for submit data, but I will call this function when I click on the submit button. So first let's create button dot set on click listener, and here I'll get the values whatever I type inside this edit text. So let's take a variable for email which will hold the value of whatever I type inside email ed edit text. So email ed dot text dot toString. Same way, well, name equals to name ed dot text dot toString. Well, password equals to password ed dot text dot toString. And now I'll call this submit data function inside this button, and I'll pass name, email, and password as a parameter to this function. And let's create this function outside on create. Now again we need a URL, so let's create well URL equals to, we will use base URL that we have inside our constants file, base underscore URL. We need to import it, so press alt enter and it will import. Plus we'll need to give the name of the file. In this case it is insert user.php. Then we will, let me just scroll down, we will make request queue and string request. So let's create request queue. This is a similar process. If you have watched the previous video, you will understand what I'm doing here. So please watch the previous video again. And volley.new request queue, this val string request equals to string request. First parameter will be the method, so request dot method dot, this time we are sending parameters with when we are calling this API. So this time the method will be post method, so method dot post. Second variable will be URL. Third will be response dot listener, and I'm gonna rename it to listener. And third will be response dot error listener. And that's it. And before I forget, let me add this string request to request queue. So request queue dot add string request. Now this will do for us, but we need to send the values of email, name, and password alongside this API call, right? So to do that, we need to call an anonymous class. We need to make an anonymous class. So before string request, write object and give double colon to here. And at the end of this error listener, where this string request function is ending, open curly braces and create a function. I'm gonna override a function font, and I'm gonna name it get params, and this will return, you can use either you can use mutable hash map or simple hash map, so whatever you want to use, right? So I'm just gonna go with hash map, and it will have both key and value as string, and we need a variable as an instance of hash map. So let's create variable map equals to hash map of type string, and don't forget the constructor at the end. Now let's pass these values to our hash map. So we need to give the key. Now you have to make sure that this key matches the name that we have inside our the column name that we have inside our database. Now, so let's go to database. Let me show you here. When you open the user table, you should check the spelling when you are passing the name inside the key inside the hash map. So the key should be same as this. So let's go to Android Studio, and I'm gonna write key for name, and I'll pass name that we have passed inside this function as a parameter right here. So again, map, now this time email equals to email, map password equals to password, and at the end return this map. So that's it, we don't need to do anything else here. Now when we are getting the data, the response, we want to toast whatever response that we are getting from the API. Toast.makeText this response, and toast.lengthchart.show, and alongside this I will also move to main activity.kt. So start activity intent this main activity double colon class.java, and inside main activity we need to change few things. As we are inserting new values inside our recycler view, we need to we need to add one more line at the end of for loop. Just write rcb adapter dot notify data says change, because new items are inserted into the recycler view. So this list is now updated, it's not the older list. So we need to notify to the adapter that the previous list is now updated. Okay, so that's it, we don't need to do anything else, I guess. Let me just check it once again. Okay, now let's run our application. Okay, right now there's no data in the recycler view, and let's click on this floating action button, and it will take us to this submit activity name. Let's enter the data, grade developers, then email grade developers at gmail.com. By the way, this is not my actual email ID, so do not email on this ID for anything, right? You can get the email ID in my YouTube channel. So password will be 123, and as you can see the password is hidden as we passed text input as text password, right? Inside this edit text. So now let's submit the data, and it will toast data inserted, and the data is displayed on our recycler view. So let's try to enter another data. Dhruv, let me write my real name, Dhruv, and abc@123.com, and password will be 123 again. Let's submit the user, and it will display it here as well. And if I click, it will display the email address of this user as well. So that's it. This is how you submit the data to the database through Volley library. Let's recap again. We took email IDs, edit text, and we took the values that we return in the edit text in these variables, and we created a function inside which we created a request queue and string request. I'm sorry, everything is same, and the change here is when we are sending the parameters to the URL, we need to call we need to create an anonymous class, and here at the end of that string request function, we are creating a class, anonymous class, and we are creating this function. We are overriding this function, which is get params, and we can, by the way, name whatever you like. I'm not sure, but anyway, we created this function, and we created this hash map, and we passed these three values with the key names, and return this map. So we and when we are getting the response, we are intenting, it is the right word to use, intenting. Anyway, we are moving back to this main activity to display the data. So that's how you insert data into the database. So that's it for this video. Please subscribe to this channel so that you can get the notification whenever I post a new video on the channel. So that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.